Jennifer here from Belladonna's Botanicals, and I wanted to talk a little bit today because I know I've talked about this a little bit in different videos that I've done recently. But I wanted to kind of talk about my current thoughts and feelings and stuff when it comes to cursing and defensive magic, a little bit in that sense. So, um, I'm trying to figure out a good way to sort of, I didn't make an outline for this, so apologies. This is just going to be me talking off the top of my head. But um, so my approach to things is that it's a balanced approach and not being and it's a ruling things out first. Like, let's rule out all the mundane bullshit at this point. Usually for me, because I've been doing this for so long and having a public facing channel and business and all that, I get a fair amount of shit thrown at me on a regular basis. So most of which is just at best annoying, and then fling it off and it goes away. It's not to say I'm not going to defend myself, but I usually kind of work through what's going on. Sometimes it's a matter of all I need to do is just sort of, re-amplify or retouch my wardings and my protections, or add something new in there. That's, and I can't stress it enough how important it is to ward your spaces. I'm not just talking about your ritual space. I'm talking about your living spaces, your car, even, anything that, you are interacting with environmentally on a regular basis. So step one, I would say to me, what I always think is warding and protections are very, very important. I sort of kind of take things as a model and then kind of go from there. I find there's a lot of excellent, especially if you're on the demonology or work with demons. There's a lot of really excellent warding stuff in these books, and also in another one. Okay, so I want to talk about a little bit here. I'm going to take an interlude on some of the books I use. Kind of what I always do is I sort of look something up and then I kind of build my own version of it or tweak it to my needs. So the books I work from the most, obviously, big fan of S. Conley. So her protection and or psychic self-defense and protection magic book, highly recommended. There's a lot of different ways in which you can ward your house, different rituals, different things. There's and every so often I add something new in here. Are new to my warding and stuff like that. So it's never just kind of an as is thing, because magic takes the path of least resistance. So if there's a crack in the window somewhere, something's going to get through that way. So I usually, I've obviously have some things earmarked in there. I also highly recommend, as far as these ones are a little more balanced between either self-work things you can do, cursing, defensive magic things, or further wardings and protections and stuff. So the preeminent curse, I just picked this one up recently. There's a lot of really cool stuff that she has in these books, so I highly recommend them. Like from this one, I think I'm going to work on this, is creating a negative energy feeder. So some of this is like creating triggered or what I mean by that is, okay, I'm going to create this protection or this curse, and it's just going to sit here until someone does something to trigger that warning, and then it kind of in the way like I have a servitor that works that way. It's sort of like you have something that kind of sits there and only, sort of activates when it's triggered to activate by something. Like if someone, it's kind of like an alarm system kind of way, you know. Also on that note, curses, hexes, and crossing got some really great stuff in there as well. And a lot of this is defensive magic, like how to uncurse an object to render a curse harmless, all of that stuff. And lastly, how to draw friends and sacrifice toxic people, black magic for glamour, influence, and letting go. And sometimes letting go is what we need to do. But this one is a little more practical, and I do love that about her work is that it's kind of let's look at this all, you know, from a different from what's the word I want to use? Let's look at this from a rational, mundane perspective. It's kind of like I've always been of the philosophy that if you're saying, "Oh my God, I'm being cursed," well, you're kind of cursing yourself at that point. You're allowing that energy in. I once if I suspect something, I'm just like, ugh, again. I have my person come in, clear it out. I do my shit, acknowledge, move on. It's not really a huge thing for me. It's basically like me. I'm like, oh shit, I guess I should run the vacuum today. Okay. So I'll run the vacuum and I'm done, and there we go. No big whoop. So there's that. Usually what I'm gonna do in that process, I'm gonna rule out anything mundane or other things. I'm very affected by energy. So full moon energy fucks me up. So I'm gonna be emo and tired anyways. So I can rule out some stuff. Is it Mercury retrograde? Is it, any number of mundane things? Um, so that's usually my first step. And what I've found is unless you're really going out of your way to like do bad things that people are going to, retaliate against, more often than not, people aren't cursing you, but they can still be sending negative energy your way, whether you're to look at like evil eye kind of stuff, because that energy kind of gets released and goes out there, whether I'm doing a full ritual or me just, screaming into the void that, so and so did something heinous and, grievously upset me or whatever. So you can curse people without doing a damn thing. I mean, if you understand how energy works, how all this, I mean, I remember, I'm trying to remember which book it was this. It generally kind of about core shamanism and stuff, but one of the shamanistic, um, sort of overarching, it might have been in one of the Toltec wisdom books from Don Miguel Ruiz or Don Jose Ruiz. I don't know. But it's basically the like when you send that energy out, regardless of whether it's intentional or not, regardless of whether you've been like, I'm going to summon Abaddon to curse you, you're still kind of that energy has to go somewhere. And magic is going to take the path of least of resistance. So if I am here furious, angry about something, I may not have even thought to do a ritual or to do anything to curse someone, but I've sent that energy out. And the same thing is if someone's angry at you about something or you've, pissed off someone or whatever, and they're angry, that energy, they're sending that out. And sometimes that's going to hit you and you're going to get negative energies and attachments and things just from almost non-magical magic, if that makes sense. So the other part of that is there are people out there who are very curse happy and will just curse people because that's what they do because they really honestly have nothing better to do with their lives. Um, at that point you're probably just cursing yourself more than you're cursing anyone else. And some people will just test things out. Pick a target and try to fuck with them. I have had my fair share of bullshit just from, having this channel. Like I'm a public, you know, facing, figure and stuff like that. And, you know, I have my enemies and whatnot, or people just don't like what I have to say or make assumptions and whatnot. So, um, I would say find something better to do with your lives, but you're probably not going to because you're just that pathetic. That's probably why people curse me, because I will just say what I have to say. So if you don't like it, that's on you. Um, oh, I wanted to give two other recommendations for protection magic books. If you're not really into the demonology part of it, Blackthorn's Protection Magic and Jason Miller's Protection and Reversal Magic, which is Defense Manual, both highly recommended. I think Bill Duvendeck has a book. I don't, do I have it? If I do, it's digital. On psychic protection. Dion Fortune has a book on psychic protection. I think Robert Bruce as well. There's a lot of different books out here and things. I particularly vibe with S. Conley's work just because it's written in a way that makes sense for my brain. So and all of it is easily adaptable to whatever your needs are. So that's why I like that, because it gives me kind of a basis for something, and then I can kind of go from there and fill in the blanks and customize it to my needs. Because sometimes I just don't always have the time for. I'm busy, like, and I'll say this here. I love what I do, and when you love what you do, it like I mean, I love doing this. I love making stuff. I love, you know, communicating with the spirit world. I love making videos. I love, I'm constantly doing something to advance my spiritual practice. And it's so rewarding. So it's kind of like I honestly, if I have to do any like return to sender, defensive magic, cursing, stuff like that, I'm kind of annoyed that I have to take time out of doing what I love to go flick, flick, flick to get rid of all the bullshit that gets flung at me. So I'm already annoyed about that. But more often than not, what's yeah, it's most cursing is kind of pointless. So, but people do it anyways. Sometimes for me, like honestly, I look at this at the times when I've cursed in the past, is like it's on a very esoteric level. So let's just take a basic ass, example here. My ex dumped me and I'm heartbroken and angry and pissed because he cheated on me and whatever. So I'm gonna curse this motherfucker. More likely than not, I am. It's almost like you're for me, and my approach here is like I'm almost ritually exercising the feelings I had, the love, getting rid of that relationship. It's like there's a point at which it becomes more of like a cord cutting or something that's healing for yourself, because because it's not like, oh, I'm going to death curse my ex, so falls into quicksand and whatever. It's more like I am cursing the negative emotions and feelings that I'm having right now to get them out of me, to exorcise them from me. So there's a healing aspect to it where you might not necessarily be cursing that person to cause them ill will and misfortune. You're kind of cursing, getting your cord, you're cutting the cords, you're severing that energy connection. You're letting go of that. So that's one aspect that does come through sometimes in cursing, that you're kind of cursing the emotion or cursing the situation. I've heard of people doing like all sorts of like weird, like cursing, a cancer tumor in order to heal it. I don't know how that would work, but I've heard people doing stuff like that before. Um, so yeah, so sometimes that's what you're doing. You're just almost venting your frustrations and whatnot. And I know, and I've struggled with this before too. It's like when something happens, you're just like, oh, I'm gonna get out my doom candles, and we're it's on. And all I would say is when you have that trigger reaction to curse someone like that, is that take a few minutes, just stop, count to 10, do some deep breathing exercise. Is this worth my time and effort? Is this going to do anything? Is this the right response? Because a lot of times we all have tempers and stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, sometimes we're just like, yeah, fuck you, well, yeah, fuck you too. I try to be methodical in my approaches to things. So looking at it, and honestly, I'm trying to adapt this approach across across all borders of my life. Is this worth being upset about? Is this worth my emotional bandwidth on any level? 90% of the time, no, it's not. We get upset and we get our, panties in a twist over such stupid crap. Like, this is not worth arguing over. This isn't even worth having a conversation about. It's like, if you need to expulse extra words, whatever. But there's times in which, I see it all the time online. We're arguing. I'm like, I'm stopping. I'm like, does this really matter? Like, seriously, the stuff people are arguing about sometimes, I'm like, this doesn't matter. Why are you upset about this? And then take it like, and looking at all the witch wars and stuff like that online, and people, cursing each other and all that. It's kind of like, all right, well, it's just not worth being upset over. The worst, allowing someone to live rent free in your head is sad. I mean, I've been there, I've done it myself, and I can tell you, it's just like, now for me, I'm like, all right, you're done. Okay. When something like that happens, I'm like, I don't even hate people. Like, I'm just like, no, I nothing you. You are like hashtag dead to me. And I am perfectly okay with writing people off like that. Because sometimes it's just not worth it. Like, if you keep having the same problem with the same person over and over again, or there's that thing that just really irritates you about them, yeah, you can sit around for years hoping they'll like get it, learn the lesson, and become a better person and all that. My most toxic trait is waiting for that. Is giving people way more chances than they deserve and getting burned. Is, trying not listening to my intuition on things, that especially for that. And I'm not afraid to write people off or whatever. It's just, and I think it's something for me. It comes with age. I'm 49. I got zero fucks to give about most things. And like, the more I look at everything in the world, I'm like, this is just stupid. And I'm opting out. Like, I'm not arguing about this shit. It's just not worth arguing about. It's not worth being upset over. It's not worth losing friends over. It's so that's kind of, I know I'm kind of a little off topic on that, but like, sometimes it's just a pivot. Of being like, oh, you can make a choice. I'm going to be so angry at this person. I'm just going to keep cursing them and cursing them and cursing them and causing drama and stirring the pot and whatnot. Or you could just be like, bye, and walk away and be like, I nothing you. You're not living rent free in my head. And holding on to all that anger and resentment, it's the cliched quote. It's like, if I resent you and I'm angry at you, and it's the emotional bandwidth and what that's doing to me, it's not worth it. It's the old adage. It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. That's what holding on to anger is. You're doing more harm to yourself than you will ever do to that other person. So let it go. And that's a lot of it is when I look at how people do curse, I'm like sometimes that's what they're doing. And if you have to do if it makes you feel better to do it in the form of a curse, I can't stop you. But I think it's just a matter of looking at how looking at the situation, looking at what is our approach to this? Like, are you going to death curse someone for scratching your car by accident? Or, maybe just a return to sender kind of thing. I learned my lesson on that, as I've talked about multiple times. And oops, I accidentally caused a bus crash. It was after my car got totaled. Did some fun work there. But anyways, and then 2 weeks later, bus crashed right by my house when I lived in Philly. So, but I've talked about that before. But there are a lot of different ways in which you can approach this. Like if you really need to curse someone, like they've just there's layers to it. You don't want to go to DEFCON 4 right off the bat. Like for me, sometimes like a lot of times my approach is like I haven't done them in a while, but like for me, my shots fired is usually like a freezer spell. I'm like, I just don't want to deal with you. Shut up. That kind of thing. Just go away. Leave me alone. And there's different things. I have a lot of, I have protection boxes as well as I have, GTFO boxes or jars or whatever. Or leave me alone. More often than not, I'm just like, leave me alone. I really just don't want to be bothered. I'm old. I'm tired. I am chronically ill. So I've got enough shit to deal with. So I really just don't want to be bothered by petty bullshit. So what do I do when I need to get back at someone, when I do need to actually curse someone? There's a couple things, like I mentioned, I do use some of the stuff from S. Conley's books. I more do warding and most of it's just return to sender stuff. Or I get really sassy and snarky with it. My two favorite curses are Medusa's Curse of 1,000 Dick Punches, and I recently just set up my altar to Belphegor in my bathroom. So I have a little book of people who need to get ass-wrecking shits. So that's Belphegor's Curse of Ass-Wrecking Shits and Medusa's Curse of 1,000 Dick Punches, because that's how I roll. I like to add a little bit of humor and levity into the things I do, because that's just me. That's usually it. Like I just it's not worth my time and effort to constantly like to be cursing people or to be doing stuff. Now, I did have a recent experience. I talked about this a little in the Goetia video I did for Valifor because it was some of the work involved around that. But someone did try to get at me by putting something. It was a knot spell they did on my cat Corey, because I had noticed he was out of nowhere, just really not himself for like a week. And I kind of ruled out all the other mundane things first, and then went to my curse specialist, who was like, I was like, hey, can you just do a scan? Like, I just to allay my anxiety about this, and also to determine whether I need to take my cat to the vet or whatever. I'm like, is there anything going on? Did someone do something or whatever? And yeah, that's what she detected, and was able to see through the person's glamour magic. So we have a good description of who the person was. Yeah, that one I had no problem doing some extra nasty stuff about, as well as having other people do some extra nasty stuff about, because there's there's a saying in these parts is everyone loves Corey, and everyone does love Corey. So, um, and most people, if you're fucking with people's families, pets, stuff like that, yeah, there's no underabundance of people that will FAFO that. So. I've been going for almost for half an hour. This is just sort of some random thoughts about this, but I'm going to give you a one of my favorite curse strategies. So if you're familiar, if you do any kind of energy work, so if you're familiar with doing kind of like an energy ball kind of thing, where you're harnessing, you know, whether you're doing your own energy, pulling in any kind of energy. So if you do any kind of energy ball sort of thing, of, you know, really building that energy and working with it. So I think what we call I think this came from a conversation with my friend Eddie. I think we're gonna call this the crow curse, because if you see, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the 1994 Crow film, the end of it, the crow basically takes the 24 hours of pain and that his fiance suffered after being essayed and unalived. So he channels that pain, and like think about that. So channeling all your pain, anxiety, depression, trauma, your anger, channeling all that into an energy ball. You see where I'm going with this? So you channel all your icky energy, and then you just let it go at that person or persons. So you know, most people aren't going to wake up with a backache and think they're being cursed, but you know, you're getting rid of your shit and flinging it onto the other person. So I look at curses as sort of a necessary thing, or defensive. Let's just say defensive magic. Speaking of Corey, here's my puppy. Nope, where did we drop? We dropped my baby. All right. So defensive magic is a necessary thing. So if someone walks up to you on the street and spits in your face, you just go, okay, thank you, bye. I'm going to be a better person about this. Now, you probably might do something back. You're going to defend yourself. So whether you own a pew-pew type thing or any type of self-defense, whether you have maybe even taken self-defense classes, maybe you know Krav Maga, you know, that sort of thing. Here, it's you've got the things you're using to protect yourself, and you've got the things that you're using to defend yourself. So that's kind of the same philosophy in magic is, and especially working with energy, because there's just so much icky energy out there. You know, I'm really sensitive to energy, so like I try to keep myself like really kind of, I've got a bubble around me just to protect myself from all the energy that's out there, because it can be really overwhelming at times. So anyways, I hope you enjoy you know, thoughts on the subject matter and the crow curse at the end. You know, for the other ones I do, the Medusa curse of 1,000 dick punches, get yourself a weenie candle and some coffin nails, call Medusa and have some fun. And for Belphegor, I set up my altar on my toilet. So because the poop curse is a tried and true curse, you know, a lot of times just write the person's name, throw it on the toilet, do your biz, and flush. Same concept, just with Belphegor. So, or, you know, you can like what I have is I have like a little notebook that has Belphegor on the cover. So that's what I use for that. The Belphegor and the Curse of Ass-Wrecking Shits. Anywho. I should write a book of weirdly humorous curses. Or petty trifling curses. I like that. Anyways, thank you for watching. Don't forget to click like and subscribe. Be sure to follow us on social media. Sign up for e-newsletter. If you love us and you really, really love us, consider supporting us on YouTube memberships or Patreon, or making a one-time donation. Our links below to Venmo, Cash App, Coffee, whatever. So anyways, Thank you, and bye. Happy cursing.